Hey everyone, I figured I'd make my return to YouTube to talk about my experience coaching two sub 150 800 meter high school athletes and the different training that they undertook. I plan to share a couple sample training weeks, what I learned from them as a coach, and some key takeaways and what I think made them so unique and really elevate to the highest level on the high school national scene. First, a little bit about myself. I went to Old Bridge High School and I graduated in 2008, and then went on to Temple University and graduated from there. Eventually make my way to New Jersey, New York Track Club under Frank Gagliano, where I spent about 7 years. Here are some of my personal bests and accolades. In 2006, I was fortunate to go back to my old high school. My high school coach, Rich Gebauer, at the time was retiring, and I took over, and that's where we meet athlete number one. He was becoming a senior. He was already a 3 times meet champions winner over 800 meters. He was part of a 4x8 national championship team that ran 7:39. So pretty big shoes to fill. So let's head on over and chat about athlete number one. So athlete number one, hopefully I can edit in and throw up some accolades and some photos, is Ray Rivera. He was a graduate from Old Bridge High School in 2017. So I only spent the fall of 2016, summer and fall of 2016 through his senior year. So up top, I include a little bit of information. Athlete profile for Ray, fed off aerobic work. He didn't need much anaerobic stimulus, much speed work. He had this huge range of ability and talent from 400 all the way up to 5K. He was a sectional state XC course record holder, and that's a really good course. Not an easy course. Ran 15:21. There are some great athletes in the past that run there, likes of Craig Fories and so on. He was also Group 4 state champion at Homedale Park, so just unbelievable range to be able to split 47 low, but also be a state champion in cross country. There I included his personal best. 47.3, 400 split, 149.5, 228 for the K, 419 for 16, then he ran 15:21 for 5K. Ray only ran 1600 meters with me, or 2 I think maybe. He wasn't really challenged. I thought he could be a very good miler in high school, but a lot, when we sat down and went over his goals, he was 800 focused, so that's what we focused on. Coach and influence, Rich Gebauer was the former coach, my high school coach. I didn't want to change training too much, and at that time he was drawing a lot of his training influence from Dr. Jeff Messer at Desert Vista. He shares a lot of his information online, and Gebauer was a huge component and believer in that type of system and building the aerobic. Then obviously Frank Gagliano, he was my coach, and he had great success. Rutgers, Georgetown, Reebok Enclave, Oregon Track Club, New Jersey New York Track Club, so on and so forth. All right, let's dive into a little bit of Ray's training and what we did. Pretty much every Monday, we'd come in and we would do an aerobic session. A lot of times we'd do tempo work. Here's an example right here. We'd do 20-minute tempo, a little bit of rest, 4 or 5 minutes, and followed up with a little bit of work at mile pace. Tuesday, he'd come back. He'd run very, very easy. His easy runs were slow. He'd probably be running 8 minutes, 7:45 pace, take it really easy. And we do some strides and some 4 times 20, 60, 20, 20-meter jogging, 60-meter essentially all out, 20-meter float out with 3-minute full recovery, just pure speed work. Come back on Wednesday. This would be a big session. In cross country, maybe he would do K repeats. In track, we would maybe stay around 5 to 6 800s. Start probably around tempo-ish pace for him, 230, 232 with 2 minutes walk and rest. And we'd kind of just cut down naturally. Sometimes I would stop at 224, 222. Sometimes he would go down to 18. Maybe here and there he would even go a touch faster. A little bit longer rest, and we do a couple 200s on the back end. Mile 800-ish pace with 2 minutes 90 seconds. But yeah, big volume day. Thursday would come and repeat similar to Tuesday. Friday would be super easy regardless. And then Saturday we'd either probably race or do a long run fartlek tempo. That weekly schedule kind of repeated itself. One day we definitely spend with the focus on tempo type work, whether it be a little bit of hills mixed in, a little bit more mile work mixed in, or a little bit of combination of anything. I actually love this workout. This was a Jeff Messer workout. A little bit of tempo work, and then some cut down intervals and a little bit of speed. So looking at this, Ray did some pretty big volume sessions, and really he looked like he trained like a 3K guy. But it had worked so well for Ray as a sophomore and junior. He ran 150 as a sophomore, ran 150 as a junior. I wasn't going to come in and try to change anything too much, and it worked. So, my job was, if it's not broken, don't fix it. So I kind of just kept things going. I made small adjustments, just like I guess probably any coach would, on day-to-day things and things that I liked. This was a staple I really liked, and he fed so well off of this type of session. So that's what we kind of went with. And Ray had an unbelievable senior year. He ran 150.04 indoors, which at the time was U.S. number 4 all time for indoor 800 meters. Outdoors, he ran 149.5, won another media champions title. He was the second athlete in New Jersey history to win 3 outdoor 800 meter titles. And then he went down to North Carolina and won the national championship. I think he ran like 150 low and a pretty tactical 800. And that was his main goal. When we sat down and talked about goals, he wanted to win the national title. He had won a couple media champions title, so national is what was really on his radar. So yeah, I was very fortunate and grateful to be able to coach him his senior year. I think being someone in the sport too for a long time, I think you realize how rare athletes like these are, and at a public school, seeing an athlete like this, can be a once in a lifetime coaching opportunity. And I was super fortunate. Ray graduates, and next year in walks a freshman in athlete number 2, which was Nick Madeiros. So let's go over his training a bit, a little bit more in depth since that's been more recent, and I coached him for 4 years. And then compare both of their training, and then again go over what really I think helped them as athletes really elevate their game outside of just what's on the paper here training wise. Now here's athlete number 2, Nick Madeiros. Hopefully, again, I can edit in and drop some of his accolades, a couple photos, things like that. But Nick came from a little bit of a different background than Ray. Nick was a soccer player first, and then he transitioned to doing cross with us and track as well. And it took me a while to figure out who he was as an athlete. I'm very distance-oriented, so speed, sprinting stuff is foreign to me. But after a couple up and down years, he still had great success. Ran 159 as a freshman, 152 as a sophomore. But he was definitely injury-prone, and I don't think the training I was doing and trying to almost take what was working for Ray, apply it to Nick was working. So when the pandemic hit, I decided to kind of flip things around and do what was best for Nick as an athlete. So a little bit of the athlete profile for Nick. Feeds well off anaerobic work. It took a little bit for his strength to come around, and too much strength would actually kind of zap him, and I feel like it would lead him to be injury prone. Personal best, almost identical to Ray, just in a different manner. 47.3 FAT 4x4 split. He ran open 4s. He was undefeated his senior year in New Jersey in the open 4. 48.3, 149.7, 228 for the K, 419, and there's the difference. 5K, Thompson Park, 1633 versus 1521 for Ray. Coaching influences, a little bit different here. So here's the big change. Highly recommend following Fast 8 Track Club on Twitter or Instagram. They share all their training. I actually reached out, talked to the coach. I reached out to a few other middle distance coaches as well, try to get a little bit of feedback of training from a different approach. Rich Gebauer, still going to be a huge coaching influence in me. Also as a same with Frank Gagliano, outside of just the workouts on the sheet here, more of how they are as coaches and people. So let's dive into some of Nick's training. So this is his kind of winter block, winter of 2021. We didn't have an indoor season. Mondays would always be speed work, and it would kind of alternate a lot of times. We would do pure speed work where we'd be given some full recovery, 60-meter hill sprints, 3 minutes recovery. Sometimes we would tack on something like a 200 meter fast, and we would split 1.5 miles, maybe 2 to 2.5, depending on the part of the year. Easy, steady running. And then the next week we would kind of do maybe 400-meter pace effort, so 50, 100, 150-meter hills. Shorter rest, not quite as fast, but still pretty fast. We're talking about 400-meter effort. And then we'd follow back up and do a combination of both of those systems. And then kind of rinse and repeat for those Mondays. Then we'd come in on Tuesday. We'd pretty much do the same thing. We'd warm up. We'd do some threshold work. For Nick, this was something that really came around late in his senior year. In the winter, he was probably doing these 540 to 530s, and by the end he was down to running probably 520 to 510, super smooth, super comfortable. And they would always back it up with doing some 200s. That was similar to Ray. We'd always back up the workout a little bit of twos, mile 15 down, 800 pace, 90 seconds, 2 minutes rest. And then we would probably throw in there a little bit of what I guess you can say would be a little bit more like VO2 type work, minute on, minute off, and we get to the track and we do some speed on the back end. And this is when this pure speed was showing. He would kind of rip these sometimes, running 100 at 12.3 and then closing it out with a 24-second flat 200 in winter. Moving on to Wednesday for Nick in the winter, always a super easy run. He would, again, run these really easy, or I would leave it for him if he wanted to do a little bit of cross-training based on how his body was feeling. He would sometimes take that, but a lot of times he wouldn't. He was pretty consistent his senior year. Come back in on Thursday, we would always do a little bit of combination of easy and steady running. 4 to 6 miles, 3 to 4 of those miles would be mixed in steady based on effort, 6:30 to 6-minute pace for him. And moving on to Fridays for Nick, pretty much in the winter, we would always kind of focus on mile pace for the most part. Sometimes we would also have to take to the hill depending on the weather in New Jersey and if there was snow on the ground. But, just a little combination of just different mile pace work, 5.2s, a 6, 4.2s, a 6, 6.3s, some 150s, classic 4.32 cut down type stuff, jogging the next rep. And, just because we weren't racing, we would tack on some of these efforts where I would tell him to run maybe a rep at 90% effort. And, he'd run something like 130 or things like that, just to stay a little bit in touch with the racing stuff, but not overdo it too much as well. Saturdays would always be an off day for him. He would have one day off every single day of the week. And then this was something also very drastically different than Ray. Nick, I think, ran one 10-mile long run. That was his own doing. Besides that, we stayed between 7 and 8 for the most part, maybe a few 9s here and there. He would go on soft surface, run easy, and that would be it, because he'd be coming back in on Monday to doing the pure speed work. Now we move on to Nick's spring training and kind of what differed from his winter training block. I guess first to go over, in his winter training block, we just did that type of work, focus on some pure speed work, some 400 work, some threshold work, and mile pace work. And he ran one indoor meet. He went down to Adidas Indoor National Meet, and he ran 49 in the Open 4, 150, 228 for the K to win that, and 152 on one weekend. So that was a nice confidence boost for both me as a coach and Nick as an athlete to see this system was really starting to pay off. We had tried it the year before a little bit, but this was the first real year implemented it around racing. So Mondays would transition from the winter to the spring. We'd get off the hills and come to the track. Similar format though, max speed, a little bit, and then maybe a combination of both. And then, I would maybe start extending this a little bit to where we'd mix in some reps that'd be over 100-meter distance. Nothing really changed with Tuesday. We'd come in, we'd do the threshold. He ran his 4:19 1600 PR at the end of spring. And since we were 4.8 focused, I didn't really push Tuesdays too much. I thought he had gotten into a good enough place from his strength perspective that he was going to achieve the goals he wanted to achieve. We would maybe increase the amount of 2s we did on the back end, and we did a ton of the alternating 200s, where we do a 200 at mile effort, 200 at 800 effort, back and forth. Wednesday stayed the same, 4 to 6 miles or recovery, and then Thursday same, 4 to 6 miles with a blend of some steadying, and then then we started still doing a lot of mile pace work since it was working so well. And maybe just extended to be a little bit larger. And then here's a little bit of a late season tune-up session example that we would use. We would do a lot of these mile sessions early, and then obviously once racing took over, we did a lot of racing. But a late season tune-up, I love this workout. He'd warm up drills, 3x100 meter strides, and then he would do a 400 at opening 800 meter effort. We did a lot of effort-based stuff with Nick. I didn't always prescribe paces. I would give him a range and effort, and that worked well for us. So he would run a 400, 52, 53 smooth and fast, 6 minutes rest, take off the spikes, back in the flats, 5-3, 2 K breakdown, 64, 45, 28. Give him another, we would probably take 90 seconds between that, 2 minutes, 6 minute break, back in the spikes, 300-meter cut down. I think he ran that right before his 149 performance. So those were a couple sample weeks of what Nick's training looked like in the spring, outside of racing, obviously. But here are actually 2 weeks he did complete. We came in on this Monday here. He had done his longest long run with 10 miles, and I wanted to give another rest day because I planned a big 400-meter session for him. This was his really only true, I would say, like pure speed 400-meter training session that was expanded above those like simple Mondays that we would do. He warmed up, a lot of drills, strides, 2x60-meter strides, 85%, 3 minutes. Then he got in spikes, and we did a 250, 150, 100, back to 250. We gave him 6 minutes recovery, and the goal was for him to run 48 pace and just be as smooth and as efficient as possible. And he ran 30.0, dead on the money, 48-second pace, 17.8, a little faster, 11.9 faster, and then he ran 28.9. And he looked great, super smooth. He never really strained. And I knew, he was in a good place to run really fast in the 4x4, 400, etc., and 800. 10-minute cool down, jumped on the bike for 15.2. I started being really super cautious as we got a little bit later in the season with Nick and his injury history, and just with how fit he was. But we kept the same routine. Came back in that next day. Instead of doing mile thresholds, I dropped it to 600s after the big day. He looked great, no issue at all. We had to cut a little short though for thunderstorms. 6 miles the next day, easy, steady, same thing. And then a little bit of mile work, 800-meter tempo, 3K breakdowns, really good session for him. 64-second pace on the first K breakdown, 62, then 60, and then a 7 miles because we didn't do a long run that day. Then another week that he did, these were not back-to-back weeks. These were big weeks that were separated with some easier weeks in between. Easy run on Monday. Not sure if we raced or not. Can't remember exactly what we had the weekend prior. But I think we had a pre-meet here this Sunday. So we had to flip around the week and how we structured it for a Monday, Tuesday meet. So here, really good 800-meter session that he did. He did 2x4x200, 30 seconds rest between reps, 6 minutes between sets, and then we tacked on a 1-400 watch list. I took the watch from him. And just told him, hey, you can run as fast as you want as long as you don't strain and you don't break form. And he looked great. He was in flats for the 200s. Goal was 27.5. He crushed that, 27.0, to 26.5 for all the reps. He looked like $1 million. 2 sets. He still looked great, so we got him in spikes. And I had the watch, let him run, and he ran 52.4, and he looked great and walked away from it, and I couldn't believe it. I knew he was ready to rock and roll. Coming the next day, I put him on the bike. I wasn't letting him run. I didn't want to risk anything. Came back in, 46 miles, 34 miles steady. We did some threshold running and some alternating 2s. Again, I started dropping from 1,600 thresholds to doing some Ks, some 6s, 8s, whatever needed to fit that week. 4 to 6 miles or cross-training, I don't remember, pre-meet. And then the next day, he soloed 47.3 split and 152 for us, which was great. And just like Ray, Nick had a fantastic senior year, and it was a blast coaching him. He went undefeated at 400 meters. He didn't run at meet of champions in the 400. Too close of a window of time with the 400 and 800. When we sat down, his goal 800 meters. That's what we went with. And he walked away with the win there. And then where he PR'd was at the Brooks PR meet. He took third, ran 149.7. Might have been a slight negative split, but in doing so and breaking 150, he joined Ray as a sub 150 guy in New Jersey, and those guys together ended up being the first duo from a high school in New Jersey to break 150. So. It was a really great moment for our program. I obviously loved it because I was an alum of the school as well. So it was really a special moment for Nick, for Ray, and for us at Old Bridge. And hopefully while I'm closing this out, I can throw up some race videos of these guys because they both were exceptional athletes and both had unbelievable closing abilities in 800 meters, which made racing, very interesting in how well they closed down the last 200 meters. Now to kind of talk about the factors that you don't see on the training schedule, which I think really help these guys. Start with number one, their mentality. Both these guys, super focused athletes, very competitive. They showed up, they never questioned training at all, fully believed in what they were doing. And for a guy like Ray, it was my first year coaching. He was already a couple times state champ. Never questioned anything. Number two, controlling the efforts. I think I touched on it, but there was never a session where these guys are laying on the track or hands on their knees. I think throughout the whole entire year, in this winter and spring for both of them, Nick, I remember having like one bad workout because of weather, and Ray had one bad workout just because he wasn't feeling good. But besides that, super smooth with their training, and that momentum just carried. Number three, they did an excellent job of not paying attention to the hype around national rankings, state rankings, what other athletes were doing. They should have competed on the day, try to win on the day. And then, what I learned kind of from them and, definitely from Ray coaching my first year was controlling efforts. I think the more talented of an athlete you have, the less often you can ask them to go to the well for you. So controlling those efforts, not over racing them, not killing them in training. These guys are talented athletes. Let their talent shine. Get them to the line healthy, recovered, and feeling good. And then another thing is avoiding early, fast races. I think now it's all about chasing time, but that wasn't any of their goals. Like Ray and Nick both wanted to run some fast times. They had some time goals, but ultimately Ray wanted to win a national championship and Nick wanted to win his first Meet of Champions title. So those were the focus of our training and our racing schedule. And credit to these guys, they stayed the path. They didn't really pay attention to what other people were doing and running fast times way early season, and peaked well, executed well when it mattered most for them and their goals. Yeah, and I think that's really it. I could probably go on and on about these guys and other, great athletes that I was very fortunate to coach with at my time at Old Bridge. I've had so many good athletes come through my doors in a short amount of time, and great relationship with those guys. But yeah, it kind of sums up. I figured it'd be unique showing you guys, the training I did with, these two talented athletes that, I was super lucky to have in such a short window of my coaching career at Old Bridge. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, or you want to see any more of their training, I'm more than happy to share. Just, reach out and let me know.